Tonight, NSAS coordinator Sarah Ibrahim continues her testimony at the Lagos Judicial Panel, plays videos which she claims shows that soldiers shot at peaceful protesters on October the 20th, 2020. 13 kidnapped victims rescued in a forest following a joint operation by the Nigerian police and vigilante in Edo State. Separate attacks on the police in Rivers and Akwa Ibom State leave a total of 12 personnel of the force and the wife of an officer dead. And at least 30 persons killed amidst dozens more injured following a blast close to a secondary school in the African capital, Kabul.
On Business News tonight, Fitch firm's first bank's rating at B- says recent board replacement won't affect its profitability and asset quality.
And on sports news, Marcos Alonso scores a late winner to delay Manchester City's Premier League title celebrations.
The Lagos State Judicial Panel on Restitution for Victims of SARS-related abuses resumed sitting today with a continuation of the testimony of one of the NSAS coordinator, Sarah Ibrahim. Led in evidence by her counsel, Sarah played several videos of protesters who sustained injuries from the Lekki toll gate shooting of October the 20th, 2020. Sarah said she personally took some of the videos with her iPhone as proof that soldiers shot at peaceful protesters on the night of the incident. We'll bring you more as we proceed on the bulletin. Thirteen kidnapped victims have been rescued from a forest in Aho community that's off the Benin-Lagos bypass in the outskirts of the Edo State capital. This was the result of an operation conducted by joint security operatives of the Edo State Police Command and Vigilante earlier today. Some of the victims explained that they were taken into the forest by their captors who demanded a ransom of 6 million naira, but they could only offer 250,000 naira, which earned them severe beatings. Our correspondent, Jessica Olugusere, has the rest of the story.
Kidnapped victims, hours after being rescued from their captors' den within the forest in Aho community off the Benin-Lagos bypass on the outskirts of Benin City, the Edo State capital. This young man, along with some other passengers, were on their way from Ibadan.
They carry us on Thursday night. We are 8. They say we are 18 in the same month, but then release small out of them, then get when they collect money. But we suffer, no be small. Since that day we fast before you come, but we never see it. They don't give anything. Rain they fall for us. We did there, no anything, nothing to eat, nothing to anything. They beat us.
Another set of victims from the 13 rescued were made up of 3 siblings and 2 others traveling from Lagos to Akwa Ibom.
Lie down now, lie down. My sister here, she fainted that night. So we were trying to help. They did not even allow us to at least to try to push her off. So she was there, she lied down there, then later she had to wake up again. When the Edo State Police arrived, they rescued us, so they ran away.
A joint team of police and vigilante operatives carried out the rescue operation.
When we went to the first camp, we met them lying down, which is the kidnapper that kidnapped them with their oga. The moment they saw us, we could not respond to what they was blowing and whistle, we could not respond. So the moment they saw us, they stand up. That is how we open fire on them. That people that they kidnapped, we have to protect them. That is why our police also surround those people that they kidnapped so that they will not be affected with a bullet injury. So that is how they were started running. We also chased them to the second camp We cannot even get them. We carry other 3 people that was tied on ground.
The importance of community involvement in crime fighting is highlighted here.
Thank all the police that came to assist us and all the vigilantes that came from the state. All these joint of us will help. But in most cases, when they want to go to the bush, always liaise with the vigilante on ground because we know the terrain.
We have constrained all the criminal elements away from the city. We have chased them to the suburb, and we are even taking the war to them in those suburbs. Now they are in the forest, where they classify as their comfort zone. Now today, you see the combined forces of the Nigerian police force and the Edo State community vigilante working side by side. The criminal will not have a place to hide in Edo State anymore.
The police had deployed a drone for its bush combing exercise, another factor credited for the success of the rescue operation.
We can now monitor it from the air, then we have ground operation. Some are static guards, some go into the bush to comb, and that is why these 14 people has been rescued. 13.
The Edo State Police Command maintains it would continue regular combing of the forests in the state, monitoring with the drones, patrol on the roads, as well as getting and utilizing information and intelligence from local communities. Jessica Olubuse, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, in the southwest, the Ogun State Police Command has rescued 22 girls who were said to have been lured from Akwa Ibom to Ogun to work as sales girls. In a statement, the police command explained that the rescue was made possible by the Ota Area Command, which received intelligence that minors were being recruited from other states and used as commercial sex workers at a hotel in the area. The officers were said to have stormed the said hotel at about 8 p.m. yesterday, where the 22 girls between the ages of 10 and 14 were rescued. The girls told the police that they were promised employment in restaurants and supermarkets, only for them to get to Lagos and be transferred to a brothel in Ogun State. They were said to have been deprived of using phones or any other communication gadget, making it impossible for them to reach their parents. One Isaac Obaji, a 33-year-old manager of the hotel, and 10 other male suspects have been arrested following the operation, while investigation continues to identify the cartel. The Cross River State Command of the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps have paraded some suspected traffickers for allegedly operating a baby factory, as well as some others for raping a minor and selling banned substances. Parading the suspects at the command's headquarters in Calabar, the state's commandant, Mr. Majekodumi Abidemi, explained that all arrests were made possible due to intelligence reports from the residents. He said over the years, the command has built and maintained productive relationships with the community.
Plans had been concluded for this newborn child to be sold for 300,000 naira alongside a pregnant woman who was being nurtured by one Happiness Edet for her baby factory business, but for the intervention of the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps in Cross River State. According to the NCDC, the arrests were made possible following reliable information from members of the public. Other suspects are also paraded for different offences, including child defilement and possession of contraband substances.
The violator is Moses Asuko, who violated a 6-year-old girl, and we have taken his statements, we have interviewed him. Of course, he has made useful confessional statements. That case will be duly prosecuted in accordance with the law. The other case of child harvesting and baby factory is being run by a proprietress, Happiness Edet, who is doing that in conjunction with her husband. And of course, the victims in this instance are Deborah and Blessings. One just put to bed 2 days ago, and the other one is still pregnant. And of course, they have arranged from the briefing, we discovered that they are going to sell those babies to some people.
21-year-old Happiness Edet, who is in charge of the baby factory, is a pregnant mother of 3. She claims she only camped the pregnant ladies in her house to assist them with accommodation until after delivery.
We talk blessing. The girl bring.
The man brought blessing, and when we asked her what happened, he said the man that impregnated her ran away. After the house rent expired, the landlord chased her out of the house. I told her that it's okay and she can stay with me. She brought her belongings and started staying there. She told me that the pregnancy is 7 months and there is a man that wants to give her drugs to help her deliver the baby. I told her not to go and meet the man, and she said the man has offered to give her 250,000 naira.
Can't keep from my house. Say may stay there.
The NCDC says the suspects will be charged to court for further investigations and prosecution.
We'll cross over to River State, where 7 police officers have been killed following the attacks launched on different police stations and 1 checkpoint in Omoa and Obiapo local government area. According to the State Police Command, the gunmen killed 2 policemen at a checkpoint between Choba community, while hoodlums who launched another attack on a police station at Rumuji killed 2 other police officers and set a police patrol vehicle ablaze. A police station in Elembu in Obiapo local government area was also attacked, where 3 police officers were killed. During the attack on the Rumuji police station, the officers were said to have put up a strong resistance and in the process injured 2 of the attackers who later died on the spot. These attacks come less than a month after gunmen killed 3 custom officers, 5 soldiers and some police officers at different security formations in Ikwere and Obuada local government areas, which prompted the governor to impose a 9-time curfew at various entry and exit points. Meanwhile, Governor Nyesom Wike says no amount of intimidation will make the state succumb to any divisive agenda. He stated this in reaction to the overnight attacks on the police formations in River State after presiding over an emergency security meeting today. In a statement, Governor Wike condemned the attacks, saying that the perpetrators are bent on plunging the country into another crisis. Meanwhile, for the 2nd time in a week, gunmen have attacked Odoripe police station in a local government area of Akwa Ibom State. According to the spokesperson of the police command, that's Mr. Odiko Magdon, the hoodlums killed 5 police officers and the wife of another officer. Some police vehicles and other valuables were also set ablaze during the attack, which took place this morning. In the last 2 months, several police formations in Akwa Ibom State have been attacked, resulting in the death of police personnel. 2 persons have been confirmed killed, while 10 others sustained injuries as men of the Nigerian Customs Service and military personnel clashed with suspected smugglers in Ogun State. And that's according to the spokesman of the command, Mr. Ahmed Oluyede. It was gathered that the incident occurred in Yewa North local government area on Thursday, when a patrol team from Ogun Command Area 1 intercepted 320 bags of foreign parboiled rice stockpiled in a building. Mr. Oloyede adds that during the evacuation of the goods, some smugglers, in collaboration with hoodlums, attacked and opened fire on the patrol team. 4 custom operatives, 1 soldier and 5 civilians assisting in evacuation reportedly sustained gunshot injuries during the attack. It was learned that the patrol team also gunned down 2 of the suspected smugglers and left many others injured. The Customs Area 1 Command said those injured have been rushed to the hospital for proper medical attention, and investigation is ongoing to fish out the perpetrators of this act. In part 2, after the break, federal government to begin issuance of temporary electronic passports as well as passport renewal at the nation's international airports. Stay with us. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. NSAS coordinator Sarah Ibrahim continues her testimony at the Lagos Judicial Panel sitting, plays videos which she claims shows that soldiers shot at peaceful protesters on October the 20th, 2020. 13 kidnapped victims rescued in a forest following a joint operation by the Nigerian police and vigilante in Edo State. Separate attacks on the police in Rivers and Akwa Ibom State leave a total of 12 personnel of the force and the wife of an officer dead. And at least 30 persons killed and dozens injured following a blast close to a secondary school in the Afghan capital, Kabul. Provision is now being made for the temporary issuance of electronic passport to those intending to travel out of the country. And this is according to the Minister of Interior, Mr. Rauf Aregbesola, who said that by June, different points will be created at the nation's international airports for passport renewal. He stated this when he joined the virtual maiden edition of the quarterly lecture series organized by the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission. The meeting was an opportunity for Nigerians in diaspora to interact with government on issues concerning them and national development. Meanwhile, the Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, Zubairu Dada, who was also part of the event, assured the diaspora community that the current security challenges in the country would soon be over. The need for state governments to come up with proactive ways to generate revenue to effectively service debt is once again being stressed. This is as the Debt Management Office, DMO, moves to ensure that the debt stock at both national and sub-national levels are reduced despite the fall in revenue. In this report, we look at Nigeria's debt profile and what needs to be done to reduce the debt burden at all levels.
Nigeria's debt stock currently stands at 32.91 trillion naira as of December the 31st, 2020. This is made up of borrowings from the federal government, the 36 states of the Federation, and the Federal Capital Territory.
If there is any request.
Recently, the Senate approved $1.5 billion and 995 million euros external loan requests of the President, adding to the existing borrowings. Considering the fact that debt to GDP ratio is at 40%, the challenge now is debt service to revenue ratio. Is the government generating enough revenue to pay down their debt as they mature?
The share of the deficit to be funded by borrowing is 95.43%. The other financing items is revenues that will be coming in as financing items on the proceeds of privatization.
A look at the debt stock shows that Lagos tops the list of states with external and domestic debt, despite heavy reliance on internally generated revenues and the Federation Accounts Allocation Committee for funding. Meanwhile, all the states and the FCT generated a sum of 1.31 trillion naira internally in 2020, a drop from 1.33 trillion naira in 2019. The impact of the COVID-19 pandemic has left government financial obligations remarkably higher. IGRS and FAC have also nosedived.
The very critical component, which is...
The Director General of the Debt Management Office shares insight on the best way out of this.
State governments have your own laws, okay? We have one, we have a DMO Act, have an equivalent at the state level. Again, if you remember what I said, legislations and institutions are what make countries work.
Since the recession experienced in 2016, Nigeria has struggled with a higher debt service to revenue ratio as revenue slid in direct correlation with a fall in oil prices. Traditionally, only Lagos and Ogun State meets 50% of their revenue from IGRs, while some states get as much as 80% of their revenues from the Federation accounts. This has made some states go back to the renegotiation table on servicing non-performing debt. The real issue is the ability of the government to raise the needed revenue to meet up with borrowings.
If your total borrowing is small relative to your GDP, other countries have 80, over 100%, ours is less than 22%. But in those countries, debt service to revenue is 10% or 15%, because the countries have revenues from taxes and duties that people pay. Are you with me? So here we don't have that revenue. That's why debt service to revenue is high. So what is our worry? That debt service to revenue is high, not the absolute size of the debt stock.
With oil prices still below expectation and persisting COVID-19, it is likely that Nigeria would be forced to rely more on debt and grants to shore up its falling revenue. However, states have been urged to take drastic measures to reduce expenses and look inward in revving up their revenue base.
Let's discuss this issue further, and we're being joined by the Director General of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mr. Muda Yusuf. A pleasure having you with us.
Thank you very much. Good evening to you.
With the country's debt stock almost at 33 trillion naira and a borrowing plan of over 4 trillion naira this year, should we be worried about how to sustain the debt burden amidst a fall in revenue?
Yes, of course, we should be worried, particularly from the point of view of the capacity to service the debt. In 2020, for instance, debt service to revenue was close to 80%. In the current budget, this 2021 budget, the debt service provision was about 3.2 trillion. This is huge. And clearly, the debt profile is clearly unsustainable. The debt to GDP argument is not something that can stand in this type of economy, because some major components of the GDP are not revenue generating. Take, for instance, the agricultural sector. The agri sector accounts for about 23% of GDP. What is the contribution of agri to revenue? I'm not sure it's up to 2%. The distributive trade sector accounts for about 16% of GDP. What is the contribution of that sector to revenue? It's also very low. So we have a major issue with productivity of many sectors, and that is why what we should be worrying about is how to ensure that the debt situation is sustainable, and we can only do that if we relate a lot more to the capacity to service the debt. Currently, our capacity to service debt is very weak. And this is a time for very difficult choices to be made. We want to get out of this situation.
Mr. Yusuf, the LCCI had advocated a national assets register as a way to link existing debt to security. How would this work, even with the plan to sell public assets to raise revenue?
Well, the whole idea is that we should not entirely be dependent on the budget for purposes of servicing debt. If you have assets that are securitized, if you have assets that can be also made available by way of equity to raise funds, just as Saudi Arabia is doing. I mean, you can just seed off a portion of our equity in some of these assets. If you have assets that are doing well, if you have assets that are also not doing well, that is constituting a liability to the government, why not do away with them and raise funds? But beyond that, we need to deal with issues of cost. We need to deal with issues of revenue, because we are talking about fiscal sustainability. We need to deal with issues of cost of governance, because in all of this, revenue is dropping, is shrinking, but the costs are still going up. And the easiest thing to do when you have this kind of situation is to see how you can bring costs under control. That is not happening. We are spending as though it's still business as usual. So we need to deal with the issues of cost of governance, the size of the bureaucracy, the size of political appointees across all levels of government. We need to deal with issues of accountability and transparency in government across all levels of government, because as we speak, there are still a lot of issues around corruption and leakages. Then on the revenue side, the states also need to be a lot more innovative and creative with respect to revenue generation. These are very challenging times, and we have to do things differently. We also need to deal with issues of fiscal federalism. You cannot have a unitary government and you expect the states to be very viable. So issues of true federalism is also a very, very important thing that I think we need to address. We must deal with these issues very fundamentally.
Thank you so much, the Director General of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mr. Muda Yusuf. A pleasure sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you very much.
Let's return to our lead story about the Lagos State Judicial Panel on Restitution for Victims of SARS-related abuses, which resumed sitting today with the continuation of the testimony of one of the NSAS coordinators, that's Sarah Ibrahim. Our judiciary correspondent, Shola Shoyele, has this report.
She began her testimony on the 20th of March 2021, and it's the third time Sarah Ibrahim, who describes herself as a freelance auditor, is testifying before the Lagos Judicial Panel on restitution for victims of SARS-related abuses. At the last sitting on April 17, she had pointed out the location of various cameras positioned at the Lekki toll gate and wondered why the Lekki concession company failed to make available the footage from the various cameras to help the panel with its investigations into what really transpired on the night of October 20, 2020.
These are two army officers here, and underneath this place, there is a camera. One of the cameras I showed last week is underneath here, and LCC never produced the footages of that camera.
Picking up her testimony from where she stopped, Sarah proceeded to demonstrate that several protesters were shot and killed on that Black Tuesday night. She played several videos which were contained in a flash drive she had submitted to the panel at the last sitting. She says she filmed most of the videos with her iPhone, while others were obtained from some of her fellow NSAS protesters. Channels Television is unable to show you some of the videos because there are gory images of protesters drenched in blood after they were shot. Some of the videos also show protesters with varying degrees of gunshot injuries, and this, according to the witness, is the scene at Reddington Hospital, packed full with more injured protesters.
This is Reddington. There was no space for anybody. People were being treated at the car park.
As she played the videos, she explained to the panel that soldiers shot at the harmless protesters and even took away some of the dead bodies.
So the soldiers ended up carrying him in the truck. So they thought he was dead because of the blood stain around him. So they put him in the truck along with some dead bodies. But they did not know that he was alive. So he's alive. And what's his name? His name is Lekon Sanusi. And they took him to MRS Bonicam, the same place they said is not functioning, was where he was carried to. And in his truck, there were only 2 people that were alive. The remaining 11 people were dead. And he counted it. It was a nurse who noticed he was alive that helped him and smuggled him out. He had to run away. They carried him to another hospital.
Again, she was asked if she could authenticate these videos as to the time they were taken and the location. She mentioned that anyone could do this using the Google Drive, and she proceeded to demonstrate how it could be done.
Google Drive can help extract the date it was taken, the time it was taken, and the location it was taken to verify.
The videos of 2 mothers who claimed to have lost their sons at the protest ground were also played. Interpreters were on hand to translate. The witness also says that attempts by the protesters to track some of their injured colleagues at some of the hospitals they were taking for treatment was rebuffed by the authorities, who cited a need not to embarrass the government. The chairman of the panel, Justice Doris Okuobi, has adjourned till next week Saturday, May 15th, for the witness to continue her testimony. Shola Shoyele, Channels Television News.
When the news at 10 returns, we have an update on the fuel subsidy debate, plus Fitch affirms First Bank's rating at B- says recent board replacement won't affect its profit and asset quality. That's on Business News. Join us again. The Nigerian Guild of Editors has added its voice in condemning the 5 million naira fine recently imposed by the National Broadcasting Commission on Channels Television for interviewing the spokesperson of the indigenous people of Biafra. In a statement, the Editors Guild described the decision as punitive, arbitrary, and against the freedom of the press, adding that the NBC has played the role of an accuser, prosecutor, and judge. It maintains that the panel should have been set up to investigate the alleged infractions with opportunity given to the accused for defense. In the words of the Guild, every accused person or organization deserves fair hearing before punishment is pronounced. Obtaining letters of apology from the affected stations under duress cannot justify the action of the NBC. Referring to an interview of the leader of a terrorist group behind the abduction of 22 students of Greenfield University, Kaduna State, conducted by the Voice of America Hausa Service, the Guild notes that no sanction was imposed on VOA by the American authorities or any other regulatory bodies as a result. The NGE calls for an urgent review of the Nigeria Broadcasting Code to reflect democratic principles. Nigeria's reliance on oil as its major source of revenue and failure to build or repair existing refineries is threatening the income for federal and subnational governments. The Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC, plans to make zero remittance to the Federation account for the month of May as a result of payments that will be made for fuel subsidy for the same period. In this special report, our correspondent, Gloria Omezuke, takes a look at the nearly 25-year-old fuel subsidy program in the country.
Massive queues at petrol stations is one of the most telling of the many ironies that define Nigeria as one of the largest exporters of crude oil in the world. At several times, previous administrations gave consideration and aggressively launched action on the removal of the famous and costly fuel subsidy program, which only sparked huge protests across the country.
200 billion we got to local government. They have already spent the money before they earn it.
In the first quarter of 2021, a new template by the Petroleum Products Pricing Regulatory Agency, PPPRA, reflected a drastic increase of petrol pump price by about 80%, instantly renewing fears and prompting fresh queues at petrol stations in the nation's capital.
The other incident before we left, they are selling the fuel 178 naira per liter.
Fuel subsidy is the differential between international petroleum prices and the local price paid for by the federal government. The 24-year-long subsidy program in Nigeria has gulped over 10 trillion naira between 2006 and 2018. The NNPC revealed that in 2019 alone, 1.5 trillion naira was spent on fuel subsidy.
It's very difficult to continue to afford this because we have our own issues, and that's why eventual exit from this is completely inevitable. When that will happen, I do not know, but I know that there are engagements that are going on. And as soon as those engagements are taken to very logical conclusions, that I'm sure that the market price of these PMS will be allowed to play at the right time.
As the proposed removal of fuel subsidy, considered by experts to be an economic necessity, hangs imminently, government delegation continue to engage with labor unions to strike a balance that would mitigate the impact of the removal on Nigerians.
We have gone through the report and we found out that there are some elements in reports that certainly we need to interrogate the report very well.
The NNPC had earlier notified the Accountants General of a total of 111.97 billion naira paid for fuel subsidy between February and April 2021. For some energy experts, this is unsustainable.
If you look at the problem of subsidy, people won't understand. One of the reasons why the exchange rate is uncontrollable is because quite a proportion of the demand for forex is to cover the import of petroleum products. And that has so much implication on other goods and services that will have expanded the economy. Petroleum subsidy is a wolf by the door that will collapse this economy if we don't do something about it.
What has it really done? Has transportation reduced? Has it improved? Do we have more water? Do we have more electricity? Has it impacted on our sustainable development? I challenge anybody to tell me how the fuel subsidy has positively impacted on the common man.
Some economic analysts believe that funds from the fuel subsidy program can be put to far greater use. Others argue that the government would have to do more to gain trust.
It's a deception of highest order when you allow your education to collapse and you are using money that you have used to build your educational structure to subsidize petroleum consumption.
After trillions of naira spent on fuel subsidy removal over the years, more Nigerians have engaged in the debate over who truly benefits from the program, how best to redirect that fund to reinforce Nigeria's development, and what coordinated strategy have been advanced to help Nigerians transit to the proposed subsidy-free regime. Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
The only student of the Abia State University, Uturu, who was held captive by his abductors, has now been released. The governor of Abia State, Mr. Okezie Ikpeazu, mentioned this via his Twitter handle. The governor, who thanked God, the security operatives, and the management of the school for the release of the student, expressed joy at the development and vowed to bring the kidnappers to justice, adding that he will not share the state with criminal elements. He also says that the state government has taken measures to strengthen security around the place where the incident occurred. The establishment of dry inland ports across the country and the proposed Maritime Resource Center in Jos, Plateau State are some of the measures by the federal government which they say is taking towards creating jobs that will address issues of insecurity. And this is according to the Minister of Transport, Mr. Rotimi Amechi, during the commissioning of the Nigerian Shippers Council Zonal Coordinating Office Complex in Jos. The ceremony was also witnessed by the Governor of Plateau State, Simon Lalong.
And our dear son of the soil, His Excellency...
It's a twin event for the Minister of Transportation, Rotimi Amechi, the Governor of Plateau State, Simon Lalong, and members of the Nigerian Shippers Council in Jos, the Plateau State capital. The first port of call is facility inspection at the Jos Inland Dry Port for Inland Container Depot by the Minister and the host governor. The dry port is a public-private partnership designed to bring shipper services to the region. After the inspection, they proceed to the commissioning of the Shippers Council Coordinating Office, which is expected to also accommodate the proposed Maritime International Resource Center with several facilities to boost transportation economy.
The Nigerian Shippers Council has a dream of building an international resource center, which will cost about 15 billion naira in Jos. This is massive but magnificent monument that will include a 5-star hotel, shopping mall, restaurant, multi-purpose halls, conference center with a capacity of 2,500.
For the Minister of Transportation, the project will create more job opportunities to curb criminality, while the Plateau State Governor promises to provide an enabling environment for businesses to thrive.
The essence of some of these projects is to create jobs, so that we can reduce banditry and we can reduce insecurity. If we don't create jobs, we will not reduce crime. The reason why there is crime is because the rich men who have run this economy from the beginning. I don't know why Nigerians always think that we are the first to be involved. Before we came, there are previous governments. If they had run the economy in a way that created jobs, today, there will be criminals, there will be very few criminals.
Our administration is happy that its efforts and sacrifices in the past 6 years towards investing in peace and security are now yielding positive results, such as the one we are witnessing today. We shall continue to do more to consolidate on the substantial peace so as to attract more of this kind of investment for the betterment of our state.
They then proceed to commission the facility.
And in the name of God, the Holy Spirit.
Apparently, a boost in the maritime sector will give impetus for economic diversification with the potential for massive employment, investment and growth for the nation.
A non-governmental organization known as Precious Little Lives Initiatives has donated food items, textile materials and other household goods worth millions of nairas to some widows of fallen heroes and residents of Paduma village in Abuja. Officials of the foundation says it's usual for Mrs. Nafisat Mungunu to reach out to poor communities and other vulnerable groups in the society to give them hope. Speaking at the exercise, the secretary of the foundation, Mr. Umar Ismail, notes that the gesture is meant to cushion the effects of rising cost of food prices in the market.
A truckload of food items, textile materials and other household items are offloaded into the compound of the Paduma village chief. They are supplies from Precious Little Lives Initiatives, a non-governmental organization in Abuja, for onward distribution to the most vulnerable in the community.
What we are doing now, what the founder of the organization, Aja Nefisa Mungunu, is doing is to make sure the poor, the needy have what to eat and feed their families, because we know now these things are higher in the country. So she's trying to make everybody come to one, no matter your religion.
The items are sorted and arranged. Then beneficiaries file out one after the other to receive their packs. For many of the beneficiaries, this gesture is very timely, as it addresses one of their most important needs: food.
This donation changed my life, not me alone, with my people in the community, because we know that we can at least have something to get into our stomach.
At the Mambila barracks in Abuja, some widows of fallen heroes also received their share of this benevolence. Representatives of Precious Little Lives Initiatives hand out food items and clothing to 172 widows of fallen heroes.
To pay school fees, feed the children, treat them, that's a very serious issue, problems to us. But when we see a helping hand giving us food, the money we use for feeding for like a week or two, we'll now use it as in to add up to the school fees of the children.
Most of us, we are suffering with these children, especially in their education aspects and their work. Some of them have finished work, finished schooling, and there's no work for them. If they can help us with work or to skills that will help us to develop some things to help the children, to bring the children up also.
Food is a basic necessity of man that many vulnerable individuals are unable to provide. But gestures such as this by the Precious Little Lives Initiatives just helps to fill the gap.
For the latest in the world of business, here is Teniola Shobowali.
Thanks a lot, Melinda. Welcome to Business News. International ratings firm Fitch says recent change in the board of FBN Holdings and its subsidiary First Bank of Nigeria by the central bank won't affect the institution's profitability and asset quality. According to a statement on its website, the credit ratings agency explained that although it views such actions as hugely disruptive, it has assessed the near-term financial impact and believes it's tolerable at the rating level. At the same time, Fitch has affirmed First Bank's rating at B- with a negative outlook less than 2 days after Moody's announced that it's reviewing the bank's rating for a downgrade following removal of the bank's board by the CBN on April the 29th. A total of 496.39 billion naira was generated as value-added tax in the first quarter of 2021, in contrast to 454.69 billion naira generated in the fourth quarter of 2020. Latest report on sectoral distribution of VAT released by the National Bureau of Statistics shows that the amount represents a 9.17% increase from the last quarter. Out of the total amounted generated in the first quarter of the year, 224.85 billion naira, was generated as non-import VAT locally, while 171.66 billion naira was generated as non-import VAT for foreign. A breakdown of the figure shows that other manufacturing generated the highest amount of VAT, which was 49.41 billion naira, while mining generated the least and with the sum of 48.36 million naira. Nigeria's stock market closed the fourth trading session this week negative with a 1.60% decline in the all-share index, while its overall value dropped by 415.88 billion due to profit taken by investors. Performance across the 5 key sectors of the market was mixed, with the oil and gas as the highest gainer for the week, up by 5.98%. Both the consumer goods and banking counter advanced by 0.62%. While the insurance and industrial goods sector closed the week negative, down by 2.20% and 1.60% accordingly. Royal Exchange is best performer among 31 gainers, up by 22.64%. Linkage Assurance is worst among 37 losers after more than 18% loss in its share price, while the trio of Axis Bank, FBN Holdings and Zenith Bank are major contributors to more than 1.41 billion shares traded in the week. Over to the money market, where system liquidity was constrained this week despite over maturity at the start of the week, as funding rates fell significantly. Open buyback recorded a week-on-week decline of 45.05% and 46.36% for overnight rates. Meanwhile, at the Treasury bills market, the overall trading activity was quiet for most parts of the week. Average benchmark yield for T-bills rose by 2.47% to close at 4.86%. Omo bills was up 6.06%, while yield for CBN special bills declined by 1.66%. Analysts expect the activity in the Treasury bills market to remain subdued next week as system liquidity remains relatively tight. And that's business news tonight. It's back to Melinda for the rest of the news at 10.
And for what's happening in the world of sports, here is Kayode Okikiolu.
Well, thank you, Melinda, and you're welcome to Sports News. Manchester City's Premier League title celebrations have been put on hold. That's after Marcos Alonso scored a 92nd-minute goal to snatch a 2-1 win for Chelsea at the Etihad. Pep Guardiola's side are on the brink of a third title in 4 seasons, but could not complete the job after Sergio Aguero allowed Edward Mendy save a tame penalty. Well, that effort would have added a swift second to Raheem Sterling's breakthrough strike on the stroke of half-time. And in Germany, Robert Lewandowski scored a hat-trick as Bayern Munich marked their 9th successive Bundesliga title in style with a 6-0 thrashing of Borussia Mönchengladbach. Borussia Dortmund's earlier defeat at RB Leipzig meant Bayern had their 30th Bundesliga crown sealed before kickoff on Saturday. Lewandowski was sensational, scoring twice in the first half, with Thomas Müller and Kingsley Coman also on target. As Bayern stormed into a 4-0 lead, he then scored his 39th league goal of the season from the spot, taking him to within 1 of Gerd Müller's all-time single-season record. And over to Spain, where Barcelona and Atletico Madrid played out a goalless draw at Camp Nou. Well, despite dominating the first half, Athletic could not find a way past Marc-Andre ter Stegen, who made 6 saves before the break. Barcelona improved after the break, but Ronald Koeman's team ultimately fell short of finding a winner that would have moved them to the summit. Atletico remained top, 2 points clear of nearest rivals Barcelona, but Real Madrid can usurp them if they beat 4th place Sevilla on Sunday, courtesy of a better head-to-head record against Diego Simeone's side. Well, that's Sports News for tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Kayode Okikiolu. The news at 10 continues with Melinda.
Many thanks, Kayode. A blast close to a secondary school in the Afghan capital, Kabul, has left at least 30 people dead and dozens more injured. The explosion took place as students were leaving the building. According to officials, most of those injured were girls. No group has claimed responsibility for the attack. Kabul is on high alert since the United States announced plans last month to pull out all U.S. troops by September the 11th, with Afghan officials saying the Taliban has stepped up its attacks across the country. French President Emmanuel Macron has called on the U.S. to drop its restrictions on the export of COVID-19 vaccine and ingredients. His comments come as a divide emerges between European leaders over how best to increase global vaccine production after the United States said it will support suspending patent protection for COVID-19 vaccines. In the meantime, let's take a look at the situation across the world in our COVID-19 global update.
India's coronavirus crisis continues to worsen as the country reports its highest ever single-day death toll of 4,187, taking the overall tally to just under 240,000. Cases also rose by 401,078, increasing the total since the start of the pandemic to nearly 21.9 million. This is the fourth time the country has recorded over 400,000 daily new infections in a week. While the situation in major cities, New Delhi and Mumbai, appears to be stabilizing, with extra supplies of oxygen being sent and new hospital beds opened up, authorities say the virus is now also spreading fast in southern states and rural areas. Across the Indian border, the Nepalese government is adopting multiple measures trying to hold in check the spread of the coronavirus, as the country has been witnessing a surge in confirmed cases, with nearly 9,200 reported within the last 24 hours. The country is now recording 57 times as many cases as a month ago, with 44% of tests now coming back positive. The new wave of coronavirus infections has seen a shortage of hospital beds and medical supplies across the country. Sri Lanka has started vaccinating people with China's Sinopharm vaccine after the COVID-19 jab was approved by the World Health Organization. Sri Lanka has also approved Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine for emergency use as the island nation battles a third wave of the virus while suffering a restricted supply of vaccines from neighboring India. And finally, over in Europe, Greece has reopened beach bars and managed beaches as part of its gradual easing of coronavirus restrictions. Organised beaches are expected to follow hygiene and safety measures such as social distancing and regular disinfections. The move is in a bid to boost the tourism sector, which accounts for about a fifth of Greece's economy and jobs.
And the main news again. The Lagos Judicial Panel on Restitution for Victims of SARS-related abuses continued its sitting today, with NSAS coordinator Sarah Ibrahim showing videos which she claims has soldiers shooting at peaceful protesters at Lekki. Also today, 13 kidnapped victims were rescued from a forest following a joint operation by the Nigerian police and vigilantes in Edo State. And at least 30 persons were today killed and dozens more injured following a blast close to a secondary school in the Afghan capital, Kabul. That's the news at 10 tonight. I'm Melinda Akinlami on behalf of the team. Good night.